Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. This video is in collaboration with another content creator here on the YouTube platform. I'm doing this video today with Bri from Bri C Beauty. I'm going to link all of her information down below. Today we thought it would be fun to talk about our least favorite eyeshadow palettes from our favorite brands. So stick around and let's do this together. I'm not sure how Bri is going to manage this video today. I'm really curious to watch hers because she has a really large eyeshadow palette collection, significantly larger than mine. I have like 40 to 50 palettes, which is a lot for a normal person. I mean, I'm never gonna go through all of that eyeshadow. My assortment of palettes is composed of about 5 to 7 brands, a couple palettes from each of those brands, and then 1 or 2 one-offs smattered throughout. So what I did was I selected the top 5, like my top 5 favorite brands slash formulas, and I'm going to be showing you all the palettes I have from each of those brands, and then showing you which one is my least favorite and why. Could be age, could be color story, could be performance or formula. That's the whole point of today's video. I really enjoy collaborating in these sorts of videos with Bri because she and I both just love eyeshadow, especially indie eyeshadows, colorful eyeshadow, bold, big, dramatic eyeshadow. Be sure to check the description box for her video. I will link it along with her channel, and I'll also link her Instagram. If you are curious as to why I'm wearing 2 different eyeshadow looks, did you notice? Be honest, tell me in the comments if you notice, because they're both kind of soft neutral, but they're definitely different. This is because I did 2 different videos with the new Nomad launch, which they sent me in PR. The first video was like blue and green looks, and then the second video, I wanted to see how versatile the palette was with neutrals. So both of these eye looks are a full tutorial on YouTube. I can card that above here if you're curious, but that's why I have 2 different eye looks. And yes, I will go through the entire day wearing mismatched eyes. All right, let's talk about palettes. So in no particular order as far as brand preference, I'm going to talk first about, let's go with Blend Bunny. We have the Surge palette, which I have, was it my first? No, it was my second palette from the brand. One of my subscribers gave this to me. This is now discontinued because neons are very expensive to source. I really enjoy the undertones of this palette. The next Blend Bunny palette I have was the first one I bought. This is the Lure palette, a newer formulation and obviously a blue, purple, green color story. And then the one that I just recently brought into my collection, which at the time of filming, you guys don't know about yet. Here is the Sickly Sweet palette. I got this secondhand. I get most of my palettes secondhand. It is pastels with some deeper tones, and this is one of their newest palettes. This was their Halloween release. You see there's a little skull in the background of the cotton candy. So the palette, which is my least favorite from the Blend Bunny brand, is, drumroll please, the Surge palette. Now, I am so grateful that my friend sent this to me because as I flail and drop it. I'm grateful that she sent it to me. I had been talking to her about how much I enjoyed the matte formula. Seriously, Blend Bunny has amazing mattes. And I just think the undertones of this palette are very, very cool. They're different. They're really unique. We have a row of pastels, but they're not standard like white-based pastels like in the Sickly Sweet palette. These are more grungy, dirty sorts of pastels. And then the next row is the midtones, and again with the undertones, just really odd, unique, kind of swampy, dirty kinds of undertones. Same thing with the deep shades. Of course, it's a little harder to see the undertones because these are quite dark. I love the fact that this palette does offer light to dark. Then we have the shimmers and then the neons. Honestly, the times that I've used this palette, I have almost always gone into the neon shades. In fact, I just recently did a video where I was recreating a look from an Instagram content creator, and I used 2 of these neons. The reason that this palette is my least favorite from what I own from Blend Bunny is because of the shimmers. It's not that they're bad. It is not the newest shimmer formula. They're really pretty. And when I swatched this palette and have used the shimmers, they're really good shimmers, but it's actually more so the actual colors themselves. I feel like this palette has such unique undertones until you get to the shimmers, and then they're just kind of expected. You see these shimmers in all palettes all over the place. So the palette is unique and stands out until you get to the shimmers, and because of the colors themselves and because of the formulation of the shimmers just not being as good, it has to be lowest in my list of 3. By the way, before I forget, I did film today's look as I said, but my lip color is different because I couldn't find the lip color that I used originally, so I just picked a different one. So this is the Italia Deluxe liner in the shade 1044 Cabaret, and I did top it with the same bit of honey that I'd used in the original look. Just so you know. Okay, moving on to the next brand, let's talk about Ace Beauté. I have 4 palettes from Ace Beauté, is that right? Yeah, 4. If you know my collection better than me, let me know if I've forgotten one, but I did scour my little shelf up there and I think I got everything. First, I have the Flare palette. This is one of the very first palettes that I bought from Ace Beauté. Then we've got the Palettopoly palette, which is this one. This came with a board game, and I think that they shot themselves in the foot by not selling just the palette. You had to buy the whole complete package. A lot of people didn't want the complete package. I have the Envy palette right here. This is kind of new and part of a discontinued collection or limited edition. I think they might still be available. And here is the Aura palette, which goes with the Envy. Okay, so Ace Beauté has a great formula, and like I said, it's one of my favorite, but my least favorite palette from Ace Beauté out of what I own is actually, surprisingly, Palettopoly. It took me a while to get my hands on this palette because I didn't want the whole game. I wasn't willing to pay full price, so I had to wait until I saw it on the secondhand market. This is great quality. It's really good. I have nothing bad to say about this palette. It's just, compared to the other three that I own, this one, Flare palette has been a favorite. One of my top favorites of all time from the very beginning. In fact, I loved the Flare palette so much that I bought it in the new formulation. Then Aura and Envy, they're just a little bit more curated, and I think that's the difference. This palette is kind of hectic. I really enjoy playing with it. I get lots of really pretty looks. It's just a little bit more scattered, and you know, there's a whole column of pinks. I almost never use pinks. And then over here, I basically never use these two shades. Or this one, actually. This one, I never touch it. There's something about this formulation that's a little bit thicker, I think, than the sparkly ones over here. And I don't really care for that color. It's not that again, I don't dislike it. I just don't usually use it. So even though this is a great palette, I recommend it if you can find it and you like, you know, you have similar eyeshadow preferences as I do, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. A friend of mine just got her hands on it and she's loving it. It's a great palette, and honestly, this shade right here, Scrunchy, is one of my favorite shimmers ever. It's so striking. But of the four Ace Beauté palettes which I own, this one is just the least exciting to me at this time. Maybe that would change if I did this ranking or, you know, later on, but that's where we stand right now. Let us talk now about Sydney Grace. I think that Sydney Grace has possibly the best matte formula that I've ever tried. So high quality, so refined. The shimmers are beautiful. They're not my exact preference. They're very, very creamy. They're just buttery, you know. They are beautiful. But I like a slightly lighter feeling, very sparkly shimmer, like Udin Ey or Adept or even the Blend Bunny. And Sydney Grace, they simply have a different formula. It's beautiful. It's excellent. It's high quality. It's just different. It's a little bit more smooth and creamy. Anyway, their mattes are spectacular. So let's talk about the 4 Sydney Grace palettes I have. I have On the Horizon. This was one of the 3 collaboration palettes with Temptalia. I own 2 of them. The other one that I own is Quintessence. It looks like this. Then we have the Tropicolor palette when they collaborated with Tina from the Fancy Face. This is Tropicolor. Quite a bit larger than the others. And then we have the In Mel's Memory Bundle to honor Mel Thompson and her creation or so of the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. I'm sorry. I don't know Natasha Denona that well. I might have that name messed up. Anyway, these are the palettes that I have from Sydney Grace, and my least favorite is On the Horizon. This was the last Sydney Grace palette that I got, I think. Again, secondhand. This one's very pretty. I actually bought it almost explicitly for this shade here, which in pictures looked more to me to be like a peachy shimmer. It's a bit more orange bronze leaning. I'm splitting hairs. It's beautiful. I think I did recently use this palette as well. The reason this one is lowest of the 4, even though it's excellent quality and it's beautiful and you get some really lovely looks, is because I wish that were more peach. And I wish that this Desert Spoon shade, which also called to me, were a little bit lighter, leaning slightly more towards sage. Also, this shade here, Midnight Courage, is just not the best blue tone for my undertones. And these two are too similar. So I can pick it apart a little bit. I would have done it slightly differently, but it is lovely and honestly amazing quality, and you're gonna get beautiful looks. Like, you can't not get a pretty look. It's just, again, of the 4, this one's lowest on the list. I don't think I can go through hardly any eyeshadow palette video without at least mentioning one of my top favorite brands, period, for design, formula, packaging, color stories, everything, Udin Ey. Udin Ey is amazing. We know this, right? We all know this. I've actually heard some people, like, either, I don't know that they've been commenters in my videos, but reading comments in other people's videos, not everyone loves Udin Ey. A lot of people have trouble with the formula, or they don't like the brand itself, or you can't return things, or they don't like that it's like Sweden themed, but it's possibly or probably made or at least shipped from China. I'm not going to get into all of that. I love Udin Ey, and it's no secret on my channel. So let's quickly go through the plethora of Udin Ey palettes that I have. I've got the Saga of Freya Cat's Breath palette. This is one of the first, or possibly the first Udin Ey palettes that I got. Then we have a much newer palette, Sea Talk, when they collaborated with Lauren from Lauren May Beauty. If you know, you know. Another of that trio collaboration, the second iteration of the legendary Diversa, was the Planet Spirit palette with Batty Jean or Betty Bean. Then we have the Stone and Rock palette. This is one of the most neutral palettes that Udin Ey has ever released. And we have the Jewels and Gem palette, also with Stone and Rock, one of the most neutral palettes that they've ever come out with. We've got the Norns palette. Now I have the old formulation / packaging. They did update this with their newer packaging, which I want. I do want it, but I can't justify it if I'm not using this enough, you know. This is the Norns palette, again, one of the very first that I bought. Then we have the ever beloved Christmas Eve palette from 2022's holiday season, and the Merry Christmas palette from the same collection. These, if you know, again, you know, they were sold out immediately. They were brought back once, they sold out immediately, and then they brought them back last year with 2 more palettes, and they sold out immediately. And finally, we have the Hella palette from Angelica Nyqvist. When she first collaborated with Udin Ey, she has since come out with 2 Halloween palettes. So here's the Hella palette. So Udin Ey, top favorite brand. Again, I love the color stories. I really enjoy the formula in mattes and shimmers. It's just perfectly to my taste and preferences. I love the, did I say the packaging? The packaging? Udin Ey's packaging is bomb.com. I love it all. But my least favorite palette from Udin Ey, from what I own, is going to be the Planet Spirit palette. Now, nothing against the collaborators. It's simply a matter of color story for this one. The performance is perfect. It's just what I expect. It's just what I want from the brand. The mattes are great. They're super pigmented. They're buildable. They're pretty easy to blend. I find that Udin Ey is best if you place it down and buff out the edges. That's how I like to work my shadows anyway, which is why I do like the brand's formula. The shimmers are so sparkly. They're just lovely. And this multi-chrome right here is so pretty. The reason that this one is lowest on my Udin Ey list is because for me, it's not really a complete palette. I prefer to have more of a range of depth. I like light to dark in shimmers and mattes, although I tend towards mid to light tone shimmers as a preference. This color story is so beautiful. I feel like it's a circus tent, but I wish that maybe she'd taken out one color, you know, take out the purple or take out the orange or take out the teal, and then filled those pans with complementary tones that would help round out the palette a little bit more. Maybe a pastel, like if we took out this teal row, okay, all of a sudden you've got a blue, where did I get blue? You've got an orange, purple, pink sort of color story. Great. So maybe a pastel pink and then a deep berry or a deep burgundy that would work with the reddish and the pinkish and the purple kinds of tones. That's it. That's probably my only qualm, really. It's just, for me, it's not a complete palette, and that's just me. I mean, other people might do a wash of color or just put, you know, a little bit of matte and then lay sparkle everywhere and you're good to go. Call it a day. It's my personal preference. And finally, we will talk about Nomad Cosmetics. I didn't actually realize that I had so many palettes from Nomad. Turns out they are quickly becoming one of my favorite formulas, and I am slightly biased because Nomad is the first brand to send me PR. So full disclosure, I'm currently feeling on a bit of a high from Nomad. This is the second video that I filmed with their brand new palette. I know that today's video is going up in April, but I've actually filmed this beginning of March, and I'm just, like I said, a little biased right now towards Nomad. However, I'm trying to give you a very fair opinion and assessment of what I own from the brand, from each of these brands. So let's talk about Nomad. First, I have the Whistler Snow Lodge. I think I said that. I think I tried to say slow. Whistler Snow Lodge palette. My friend, one of my subscribers, sent this to me actually. I really wanted it, and I was on a no buy, and Nomad was selling out the rest of the stock, and my friend bought it and had it sent to me. Super sweet. Another unexpected palette was a gift from a subscriber. This one was a surprise. This I had seen secondhand, and again, on a no buy, and my friend goes, I'm just gonna buy it and send it your way. This is the America's Parks palette. This is quite old. This is the oldest that I have from the brand, I think. Then we have what I use today. This is their brand new launch, the Ireland Wild Atlantic Way palette. Lots of greens and just updated formula and quite pretty. Then we have the Paradise Islands palette, which I got from a fellow YouTuber. This one is, I mean, tropical island vibes all day long, right? We have the Verona, all of these are upside down on my lap. I picked up the pile the wrong way. The Verona Love and Death palette. Here is the love side, and then here is the death side. And finally, we have the Monteverde Cloud Forest palette, which I think we all know is my favorite. This one's not really featured in today's video at the bottom of the list. Now for today's video, I struggled a little bit because there was one palette that I genuinely struggle a bit with this palette's formula, but every look that I get from that palette, I love. So I'm gonna tell you which palette that is just for the purposes of today's video, but it's not my least favorite from Nomad. It is the Verona Love and Death palette, and I, along with many other people, had trouble with some of these shimmers, but when I use this palette, I get really, really beautiful looks. So there's something about the color story that works so well. It makes me like the palette more despite the struggles. My least favorite palette for the purposes of today's video from Nomad Cosmetics that I actually own is the America's Parks. And this is really just a matter of, it's a little bit more neutral leaning. I love colorful eyeshadow, and when I want neutrals, I want them to be striking neutrals or neutrals with a twist, an interesting undertone, or be extra sparkly like the Sea Talk palette from Udin Ey. I love the neutral shimmers in that palette, or a depth, you know, just next level sparkle. Some of these shimmers are really, really great. They're super sparkly, very glittery and light toned, but then a couple of them are, I don't know if they're more hard pressed or they're just less exciting. This one and then these two in particular, still beautiful, still perform just fine, especially given the fact that they're, you know, it was produced a while ago. They still perform fine. They just don't excite me. And it's partially the undertone, partially the shimmer formula itself. It's not quite as sparkly or lightweight as I want, or it just doesn't give me a very interesting result because it's neutral. I don't dislike it at all. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's more personal preference. So that's today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I would love to hear, do you have any of these brands, or just in general, what are your favorite brands and then your least favorite palettes from those brands? Remember to check out Bri's video. Again, all of her information is linked down below. I'm sure that she has some really lovely palettes to highlight. Even though they may be her least favorite, she has a huge collection. So I don't know how she's going to format. It's probably going to be a good time. I hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing before you go. If you like this kind of content, do remember to check the description box or the carded video for today's look if you want to see some more neutral looks from the brand new Nomad palette, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for being here. Bye.